This is my 1993 Volkswagen diesel Golf. It has a 5-speed manual transmission, and it has a 1.9 liter AAZ engine. I've done quite a bit to the Golf, primarily things like bodywork, paint, and kind of other general servicing like timing belt and clutch. And fun fact, you can actually use the lighter flywheel from a gas car variant if you can't find the diesel one. So behind this mess is a bunch of push and pull rods that are held in with 1, loose as hell bushings, and 2, plastic clip-on retainers, which has left me stranded on the side of the road, and the only option was to limp it home using duct tape as my shift linkage. Now see, I could just buy this off the shelf, but by spending $279 on this vehicle, I'd be basically writing it off at this point. So I think I can just make my own. Now this is my 1997 Volkswagen Gas Golf, and it actually features the same type of shifter system. The first step with anything like this is to obviously start your music, and then just proceed to block the camera and not really show you take anything off. But I'm doing it, I swear. And like all of it was just caked in grease and dirt and grime, leaking transmission fluid. So I got a nice little bath of brake clean before I started to do anything. So here's my thought process. I'm not taking credit for this, as it's pretty much just a copy of the aftermarket one, but anywhere there's a rod, there will be a tube with threads on it, and then that attaches some 1032 heim joints to the ends. And then for the brackets, either the hole needs to be filled and have a through hole added to it, or simply just drill a hole through it. And voila, that is how you turn a shitty push-pull rod system into a maybe slightly better heim joint style. Man, I won't lie, by making it a little fixture so I can actually mount a vise into the drill press, huge time saver. It just made this job 10 times easier. I'm gonna have to do it a number of times. So remember when I said either I just drill the holes or I fill it and then I drill it? Well, that's basically what I'm measuring here. I have to essentially make a washer that will fit into the hole, ideally welded in, and then it just so happens it has a through hole for a 1032. Ignore the 5/16 I was tweaking when I first chose that. Now it's really awesome that I actually have 5/16 hardware, but I want to do 1032. So that means I have to go to Home Depot, get 1032 hardware, but I guess I can also use this time to get the pipe that I need. This is probably a good point to bring it up. I decided to 3D print rod ends just as a kind of testing thing, just to see if the overall lengths and the bolt size and that sort of thing ended up working for me. So what I ended up doing is I just downloaded the file off McMaster. I set the distance between the inside ball and the kind of the outside surface to be 0.16 millimeters, and that was able to print in place, and then you can just break it free with like an Allen key and it still stays retained. And then I also decided to add a little boss or lip to further kind of keep it more constrained. And they printed pretty much no problem. A little bit of stringing, but that's kind of to be expected. But yeah, you can see, just put the Allen key in, break it free just a little bit, and away you go.
So kind of my rough idea here is line up the eyelets with the middle of the little rods, and then place the nuts roughly where I think I want. Move this guy. And then I'm assuming I don't bump anything crazy. As long as I have room on my table, I can just do kind of one of these. And that's my cut line. And I'll just weld some nuts on the end of it and it should be good. This was definitely the method of just putting little nubs on the nut, and it just sits perfect. All right, well, while that thing's cooling down, I guess I can take some random 3/16 stock, cut out the little blob, and then fill in that hole so I can re-drill it and, you know, do my thing. Oh, got it all kind of in. Just grinded it down till it fit, and then made it flush with the vise. Just go over it, weld both sides. I don't really care if it's that good of a weld. I'm immediately drilling a hole, so for a 1032.
Now that our piece has actually cooled down, as you can kind of see, I mean, it lines up, it's adjustable, so even if it isn't, then you can turn it in a couple turns. But honestly, in the future, I'm going to go back to the weighted style shifter and just modify it and add nuts and drill some holes in the end so I can get that nice feeling back in the shifter. So I'm going to show two different methods of reverse engineering a part, especially like sheet metal. So kind of the first way to go about it is to use a scaled image alongside a measurement and a simple tracing of the path, if the part allows you to. Then it's just a matter of getting bolt hole locations, widths, and hole sizes, things like that, and just adding it in after the fact. I like this way, especially for 2D parts, because it takes some of the guesswork out and, you know, removes some repeated simple measurements of always using calipers or tape measure. But it can be a little bit annoying to set up. Speaking of setup, the best way to do it is to enable the level feature on your phone and take it far away and zoom in, since this minimizes the distortion that the lens makes. If you don't know what I mean, think of trying to do this with a GoPro or like a fisheye lens. It's basically that effect, but on a super small scale, which can affect your measurements. Now, the obvious next method is to just use calipers and measure to your best ability. One thing to note though, just as a general one for sheet metal, is if you're getting things made at a shop with a press brake, it's kind of a good rule of thumb to set your bend radius as the thickness of the material. It's a good starting point and relatively accurate. A number of things can change this though, but really it just comes down to tooling. So if you're doing anything large or costly, get a couple test pieces done by the same shop just to know for sure. So the next steps are pretty much rinse and repeat of what I just did. Remove the nub and drill a hole on the piece that the shifter first connects to. Remake the bracket for the transmission, which I actually just modeled. Cut a longer length of pipe for this rod. I don't really have names for any of this stuff. And the last piece is basically done. I just need to actually order the parts on McMaster, which is just a small link of rod ends. pretty happy with how all the parts turned out. Here's the OEM, but customized brackets. They were a bit too complicated for me to bother remaking, so this will work just fine. The push rods have nice thread length, not too much stick out, and can be dialed in later, no problem. And I'm quite stoked with how the cotton form pieces turned out. I'm sure they'll fit beautifully as well.
So it's all looking pretty good in here. Kind of two exceptions. One being, I'm gonna need a spacer probably down here, and then also another spacer because that rod end is hitting that top piece there.
Since I had to take it mostly apart, might as well use this time to clean the parts as well as give it a nice coat of paint. When I say nice, I mean whatever I had on the shelf, which was brown. I mean, at least you don't really see it. It's more so just to protect it from the rust. But anyways, here's a video of it going from neutral, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and finally reverse. Not bad. And there you go. There's the cycle again. You count yourself. The moment you've been waiting for. Is it any better? Not really.